Good morning or good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you are. I just want to welcome Aaron Atimpe, Bright Osei, and Enock Kofi for this webinar on Ghana mining industry, a blessing or a curse. Thank you so much, guys, for accepting our invitation today. I will straight away, we just have 1 hour and we have so much to discuss. I will straight away go into the first question of the day. There's a large-scale mining sector and small-scale mining sector in Ghana. Most of those small-scale mining sector or companies, I must say, are illegal or unregulated. And you also have the impact on the environment, for example, on water bodies. At the moment, a statistic shows that 60% of the water in Ghana is contaminated in large part due to the activity of those small-scale mining companies that are illegal, are also referred to as galamseys. They're also the impact on the vegetation, wild animals, human health, because they use mercury, mercury poisoning. My question to you guys is, should they be banned, meaning those galamseys, because of the cost to the environment, or should they be tolerated for employment purpose or sake, since they provided much needed income for poorer community? I will start with you, Mr. Aaron.
Okay, thank you very much for having me once again and for that question. I think it's there's no straight or direct answer to that. First off, I wouldn't say, especially being a young person and having been familiar with mining communities and the type of livelihoods that people from those indigenous communities draw from that activity, it would be out of place to say that illegal mining, or what is commonly referred to as galamsey here in Ghana, should be banned outrightly because of the impacts that they have on the environment and other human sources of livelihood. I think it's just like any other engagement in human society. So there are other things that are bringing some form of benefit to national economics or even local economics, for example. But that does not mean those things do not have adverse effects. It's just for policymakers to be able to put in place the right mechanisms to be able to prevent those adverse side of what would have been a source of economic livelihood to then have an adverse impact, for example, on the environment. So it's the same thing with small-scale mining or galamsey. There are so many people who make their livelihoods from the mining activities. And actually, per law, galamsey or small-scale mining is supposed to be limited to just locals. No foreign nationals are allowed by law to be able to engage in that activity. But unfortunately, that's not what we see. And a lot of the pollution that we have on water bodies, for example, is because you have foreigners, mostly from China and other countries, bring in some form of machinery or the other to engage in small-scale mining. That goes to a scale that is able to pollute the water to substantial levels, like the 60% pollution levels that you've alluded to. So I think it all boils down to regulation. And regulation, even though communities and the people who engage in it have a responsibility to be courteous in how they engage in the activity. I think the law defines clearly who the policymakers and the regulators are. And those people need to be up and doing. They need to engage the communities, for example, and they need to ensure that the regulatory frameworks that are in place are strictly enforced to ensure that people are able to engage in small-scale mining, make decent livelihoods without posing any form of danger or threat to their own lives or to the environment. And even beyond the environmental damage that you mentioned, I have done some work in some mining communities in some places in the Ashanti region, for example, when I was doing my undergraduate studies. And when we went on the
that's interesting. Please tell us more about it.
Yes, so when we went on the field to do data collection, and this study was done at the time that the government of Ghana had placed a ban. So actually government has experimented that. So there was a ban at some point on small-scale mining because the effects on the environment were just getting terribly out of hand. So water bodies were getting overly polluted. And from this study, looking at the water bodies is just a fraction of the problem. Actually, people from these communities will tell you, for example, the impact it's having on their farm activities. And there are other people who earn livelihood from the forest, from engaging in different sorts of activity. And this mining activity just completely disrupts all of that. So the water bodies is just one aspect of it. And my guess is that because water is not usually very still, so if the water is polluted at one point, because the water runs, you get that pollution then transferred into other communities. But when you go into mining communities, you see that the impact is on a wider scale that spans beyond just water bodies to include agricultural livelihoods, for example. There are water bodies that serve as a source of water for irrigation farming in most of these mining communities, for example, and all of that gets destroyed, the farms get destroyed. And the extent to which young people get maimed, others even losing their lives because of the dangerous nature of the activity itself.
Also the mercury poisoning.
The mercury poisoning as well. So the effects are just too many. But I don't think that is enough grounds to say, for example, that we should put an outright ban on it. I mean, the experimental banning that was undertaken by the government, I guess, was supposed to, for example, give some form of room for the policymakers to re-strategize and see how to effectively regulate that. But of course, there would be no point, in my view, in completely banning this. I have heard and seen people make the argument that Africa will be, Africa, including Ghana and most of the countries that are blessed with mineral deposits, we're better off just leaving their minerals in the grounds untapped. Well, that argument could stand to an extent in the sense that if you consider that what is happening now, you have the negative sides of it outweighing the positive, then that is a good justification for the point that we are perhaps better off just leaving the minerals on tap. Right. But then if you want to look at the real potential that these minerals hold, if mining or exploiting them is done the right way, I think that point of leaving them on tap cannot stand. So it goes back to this whole point of the regulators and the policymakers doing their work very well, playing their role, and then of course not leaving communities entirely out of this. Communities also have to be responsible in how they go about extracting these minerals to make a livelihood. Just as the law makes provision for local people to be able to make a livelihood out of this, that must be done responsibly. And policymakers, I think, must be up and doing to ensure that there's a balance.
Thank you so much, Aaron, for such insightful. Bright, I would like to know your thought about this same question. Bright, please go ahead.
First of all, thank you very much for the invitation and for giving me the opportunity to share my perspective on this very important.
You're welcome.
I would like to say to make an utter ban of small-scale mining is not something that we should do. I want us to go a little back to the history of Ghana from the then Gold Coast. Mining activities predate the colonial past. So we've been in the mining sector, and we've been mining for the last 120 years with evidence of mining, which would be artisanal mining as far back as 1895. So we have come a very long way. And the mining, as we know today, is the small-scale mining and the large-scale mining. If we look at the mining sector itself, the GDP's contribution is about 7% to the economy. If we're looking at the large-scale mining, it contributes about more 50% of our foreign exchange comes from the gold exports. Ghana, due to technology and advancements in mining and mineral exploration, Now we are arguably the gold capital of Africa on seat in South Africa. So currently about 4.7 million ounces of gold annually. This is something that one would say it's an industry that, I mean, a lot is happening. It is contributing to the economy. But we want to focus now on the smaller side of the tail, which is the local mining. Now, it has become a norm that governments have succeeded in demonizing local small-scale artisanal mining. We have to bear in mind that these are the people that contribute 20 to 30% of our entire gold output.
Yeah.
The small-scale mining industry employs more than 1 million Ghanaians, and these include children, mothers, and the rural community. So if you want to make the contracts for the reasonings that we have given, the environmental pollutions and all of that, that it is enough grounds to ban it, I wouldn't agree. I think we have to regulate the sector properly. I think there has to be policies to educate these miners. These people have been living all their lives in these areas. It's like telling a child growing up in a sea, by the sea, that no, you don't have to go and swim in the sea. How are you going to, make sure that happens? You just have to teach them how to swim and how to swim properly so that they don't get drowned. But you cannot prohibit them from going to the sea. These people in Takwa, in Ayamfri, in Obuasi, this is what they know. This is what their forefathers know. This is what kind of life that they want to have. The only thing is they have to come to understand the dangers caused by their way of mining. Most of them are not even aware the dangers caused by mercury. They are not aware of that. So it's a government responsibility to, together with civil society, bring the local miners, teach them responsible mining, help them in their processes, and bring them into the national grid, make their activities more sustainable. That is what we should be looking at. Now, Aaron made a little mention about small-scale mining and the fact that some Chinese or foreign entities or nationals have been invaded. That is a fact, and a sad one. But the fact still will remain that we as Ghanaians, and from our culture, there's no way a foreigner can come to your country and do what you don't allow them to do. I have worked with a lot of Chinese. I've worked with a lot of different nationals. And just for the Chinese, they are even afraid of authority. Most of them don't even speak English. They have Ghanaians who are leading them in negotiation with the chiefs, with documentation and all of this. So for me, for somebody to say the foreigners are responsible, I would find it really, really hard to understand. I would say we are responsible. This is our water bodies. This is our land. We have to know what we want, but we have overlooked the Ghanaian counterpart. We have overlooked many of these things, and then went always gone ahead to engage the foreign nationals. For them, it is pure risk versus reward. It's profit, nothing more. And when you are sitting in front or across any person in a business negotiation, at the end of the day, they are looking for their own interest. China is the largest producer of gold. Russia, Canada, Australia, they have gold there. It is not new. We are not the only people that have gold. But their water bodies are not being polluted at the 60% rate that you have alluded to. So at the end of the day, it is possible to have mining. It is possible to reap the real benefits of mining without necessarily polluting the environment, without necessarily jeopardizing the future of the upcoming generation. So I would still say that it's not a question that I will even consider. We have to get better at policies in regulating the small-scale mining sector because at the end of the day, the small scale miners, their output is what is really in the national system. They spend their money in the country. Anku, Ashanti, Kinross, Newmont, all of these people, it is nice to listen to the statistics of how much gold is being produced and all of that. But all of these go away. They are not even processed. You know, the raw gold, you take that away and pay some royalties. And then what are we left with? We are left with at the mercy of politicians to actually be able to use these royalties properly. But at the end of the day, they're a small scale miner. If we can harness the activities, their output, they actually benefit the environment, the communities that operate in. So we can say, or I would argue that we get more value when we actually promote our small scale mining sector. Because at the end of the day, this is Ghanaian. This is Ghanaian ownership. This is going back to the community. And most of the large scale operations that we have, we don't have significant Ghanaian ownership. We don't have that. So it's like we are just brokers or middlemen of our own resources. And we have succeeded in jeopardizing, or making the only place that we should promote. We should make sure that they are doing, we have all the institutions and regulated, but the question is, why is that not being effective? So I think policymakers and the government should focus on streamlining the operations of the small scale mining sector instead of demonizing it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bright. My next question is for you, Enock Kofi. Bright says something very interesting, and it's so interesting that I would like you to have your say on it. Like he said, the interesting part, or the interesting thing with the Galamsey, or those small-scale illegal mining, is that all the income they generate stay within the community. Unlike multinational, company, that repatriate the majority of their profit. And my question to you, Kofi, is that could this be a solid argument, to go to the government and rather, instead of, sending the military to shut down the Galamsey, seek to empower them, like Aaron and Bright mentioned earlier, for example, with appropriate infrastructure. Can we use this as a solid argument?
Thank you for inviting me first of all to this as well. I was trying to figure out my video. I don't know if you guys can see. It's a little blur. I don't know what's happening. I'm just going through the concept, but all the same. I think Bright and Aaron have said a whole lot of them. Regarding the question you asked, definitely the small scale miners are people or mainly indigenes that are involved into the small scale mining, and then they support about almost over 4 million households, as Bright alluded to. So one thing is, the money made in the small scale industry doesn't go out of the country. It's basically a circulation of income. So that income is spent between the household. That income is used to buy goods and services from other producers. So basically that money stays within the system. That is what we contribute to the GDP itself, unlike the large scale miners who kind of repatriate the money outside, which can lead to capital outflow and more of like a leakage into the system. So the money goes out into developing other countries or developing, let's say maybe their companies or whatever, but the small scale mining are like household businesses that go into the small scale mining that spend the money in the system. The money never goes out. It just goes to other producers in other sectors of the economy. So definitely this is a very huge area that we can definitely propose to the government in trying to sensitize the communities as well, in terms of the small scale mining association. I think one key thing is education itself, right? So basically the majority of the small scale miners are uneducated, and put in quotes, are uneducated. They don't have any experience in terms of even the mining itself. So that is what is causing a huge pollution in terms of not even knowing what mercury, the harmful effect of mercury on them as individuals as well. So once government is able to come up with education, civil servants educate them on how to even the best practices in terms of mining, then I think that will go a long way in terms of contributing hugely into the economy. And then as far as income staying in the economy or whatever revenue they obtain from the sale of the mineral resource into the economy. Also, I think Aaron also mentioned that a lot of the international companies are also kind of delving into the small scale mining, which is really true. Definitely, the Chinese and then some other large scale, some other part of large scale people are also into going into the small scale mining because I think they see the small scale sector to be a source of cheap labor, where they can definitely like kind of employ people to do the cheap labor thing. Just give them a small chunk of money to bring in the gold. And then I think Bright also made mention of we being our own enemies. That is really, really, really true. So you see some Ghanaians being in the forefront, giving deals to people, to international people to undertake the small scale mining, which shouldn't be the case, right? Because majority of the international people are involved in the large scale mining. They should know the best practices, the best practice in terms of using what tools or what distraction, and in terms of replacing that part of the environment that have been destroyed as a result of the mining. So for me, I think it's more of maintaining the local content where we try to sensitize the small scale miners, try to educate them about the environmental impact of their mining, for them to also use the best practices, which is very important. And then, as we said, definitely the income stays. The income are definitely the income doesn't go anywhere as far as the mining revenue are concerned from the small scale miners. So it's just a circulation of income, which definitely is what GDP is all about as far as the GDP accounting is concerned. So for me, that question is definitely like a huge proposal that needs to be sent to the government in terms of looking at educating the mining sector, especially the small scale mining communities, because most of these people even don't have a secondary school certificate, right? And how would you, and that's where the whole issue is, right? We need engineers to be part of the small scale mining sectors. We don't just take people who don't have even any secondary school certificate to go do mining, where they only rely on how to dig and wash. That's all they do.
I agree that the government should change the approach. Instead of sending the military to shut down the galamsey like in the past, to rather seek to empower them. It might be through education, like you just mentioned, Kofi. It might also be through putting appropriate infrastructure, as suggested before. I think it's Brian will mention something important, is that in Canada they have gold, in Australia they have gold, but they don't pollute water. In other words, there should be a way that we can do all this together. But the approach is clear to change and rather seek to empower them instead of trying to shut them down. You guys bring me to my next question, which is, what will you say about gold, or even the new oil, a blessing or or curse, depending on how you put it? How will you say, is it a blessing or a curse, gold in Ghana? What I mean is, does it benefit the few? Is it a blessing to the few and a curse to the many, especially those who are affected by environmental impact? Or is it like a blessing to the many? What will you say to that question? Because mineral resources, sometimes when you get into a country, we know that it comes with a whole lot of problem, in part because of corruption and stuff like that. To a point, some people think, maybe it wasn't a blessing at all. What would you say? I will start all over again with Aaron.
Again, I would resist the temptation to give a straight answer to that. So I wouldn't want to say outrightly that it's a curse or it's a blessing. I think there are varied perspectives to it. Obviously, the mining sector has had some positives. So from our responses to your first question, we've all listed some of the negative impacts, and you listed many of them yourself in asking the question. And then you are left asking whether there's no bit of positivity at all from mining. I think obviously there are some positives, like Bright mentioned, even the small scale mining sector alone contributing about 7% to GDP, the large scale mining contributing even a bigger percentage to GDP. And you want to localize it, and you look at, for example, in mining towns where there are bigger mining corporations that put up schools. So I'm trying to take this away from just the direct benefits of the minerals themselves and looking at the other benefits that the presence of mining companies, for example, bring. So there are towns where mining companies paved roads, for example. There are places where, even though we've spoken about the destruction of water bodies, there are places that where mining companies, as part of their corporate social responsibility, have constructed boreholes, for example. And then also hospitals in some other places. Of course, you can talk about the ownership structure of this, and then access and how liberal these are and what type of people can access some of these facilities. And then also, we can also talk about the stimulation that these kinds of activity bring to the local economy, for example. So you go to towns that were traditionally very localized. There's nothing really big about the local economy. And you go there now and see that mining, the presence of mining there has sort of diversified the local economy, for example, or even widened it. So for that bit, if you want to look at it, that looks a bit like a blessing. But of course, I always prefer to compare what is happening to what the potential really is, or what was supposed to be happening. So you look at mining, and then you mentioned Canada and other countries that also have mineral resources, and they mine without polluting their water bodies. So directly it's telling us that it could have been done in more better ways. So obviously we could have been getting more from the mining sector, for example, if local Ghanaians were alive and present in every stage of the mining value chain. Even within the small scale sector that is supposed to be the preserve of just Ghanaians, you only see the presence of Ghanaians limited largely to just extracting the mineral, just washing it and then selling it in its raw state. Yes. But really, a lot of the benefits and a chunk of the profits come when you are able to add some value to that. And the value addition largely does not happen here, or it doesn't happen within the hands of the local person. And even when it happens, the benefits or the profits thereof do not eventually trickle down to the hands of the average person in the mining community, for example. And then you want to look at the contribution to GDP, and then consider, for example, how is the contribution like? How is the flow like? So, for example, which people own the resources or the proceeds from the mining sector that eventually add up to GDP? So it's possible, it's true, for example, that in absolute terms, if mining sector contributes, let's say, 3 billion to the national GDP in money terms, you want to look at, for example, where is this money coming from that eventually ends up in the GDP? Can say with a certain level of confidence, for example, that is coming from a limited cortex of people who have the resources, for example, to be able to own companies, or people who have the resources, for example, to be able to, like I think Enock mentioned, be like middlemen. I don't know whether it was Enock or Bright, be like middlemen to bring in some Chinese bigger firms or other foreign corporations to be able to take up concessions, buy concessions, and then engage in mining activity. So I just want to look at it from a disaggregated perspective. And then you see that the contributions even to GDP is coming from the hands of a few privileged and wealthy people, and not necessarily from the average person. So again, going back to the potential, you realize that and I like the fact that you sort of define the blessing or a curse to mean the amount of people who are benefiting from it as against the number of people who are at a disadvantage. So if you want to look at it within that framework, it's safe to say that the majority of Ghanaians only get to interface with the mining sector by way of the negative impact that it's having on the environment, for example, on water bodies, for example, the amount of mercury levels that pollute water bodies that eventually run off even beyond mining communities to other places. Of course, we can talk about the trickle-down benefits of a higher GDP, but that is more of an indirect benefit to the average person. But if you want to look at the direct benefit, the majority of the Ghanaian population only get to experience the negative aspects of it, because there are many non-mining towns than there are mining towns. So the direct benefits that the few that get the direct benefits of it are largely people who are centered in the mining communities, apart from those with the financial capability to be able to engage in it. But if you go to the non-mining towns, really what happens to them mostly is the negative impacts that trickle down. Of course, not running away from the fact that there are some indirect benefits of it that come to them as well. But in terms of comparison, the experience the negative impacts of it largely through water pollution, and then impacts on agricultural yields and other things, and then even health consequences of the mining activities, because the sector is largely unregulated. So the majority of the Ghanaian is at a disadvantaged position relative to mining. But that, again, I want to hesitate in running on the basis of that to say that the sector is a curse. I would prefer rather to say that we can get a lot more from the sector, and we are not realizing the full potential of it. And it goes back again to the policymakers and the regulators who have the power really to ensure that the right things are done, to ensure that the benefits of the sector are shared evenly or on a balanced scale, so that a lot more people get to benefit from it. And then again, we are able to, for example, get the bigger corporations to contribute to reducing the negative impacts, especially the necessary negative impacts that would come out of mining sector, irrespective of how you do it. So it's really up to the policymakers and the regulators to ensure that the right mechanisms are put in place, including getting mining companies themselves to contribute to the efforts to mitigate the negative impacts of the mining sector, so that a lot more people can get to benefit from the sector.
Right, thank you very much. Bright, my next question will be for you. I want your comment on something very important Enock Kofi mentioned, and I think Enock is right when he mentioned education. The question one might ask himself is that why are the Galamsey's people not being educated, for example, on how to go about doing this thing properly, for the danger of mercury poisoning and stuff like that, to use appropriate, security clothes. I don't know. Why is it, instead of sending the military, I should say the government doesn't send engineers or educators, people who can help them structure, maybe a new school, teaching them how to, take advantage of this quote blessing, which should be, especially like I said, because most of their income stay within the community and they contribute directly to the economy. We should really seek how to empower them. Why are they not educated that way? Or what can we do, to push the government toward that direction?
Thank you very much. I like most of the comments that Aaron made with regards to the true potential of the mining sector not being realized or up to date, that we haven't really seen the full benefits of gold mining or the extractive industry in general in Ghana. To your question with education, some works in the process, there's been some engagement with the University of Mines and Technology, engaging the smallholder communities, the mining areas. It's been a process, but this should have started long ago, or should have started before now. It's been a gradual process in bringing their activities, sanitizing the activities in terms of mercury-free mining. Just recently, the government launched a mercury-free mining sluice processing for the small-scale miners. The question would be, why didn't we do this, or why wasn't this done years ago? So, I mean, there are engagements, there are improvements that are happening, but it will take a while. We need this, we need the attention to go towards educating them, towards making the activities more sanitized and more economic and environmentally friendly. So we want to educate the farmers, the miners. We also have to educate them on the aspects of the mining and its effect, because most of them, they do not understand what the real causes or what the real consequences of the mining is. So, for example, there's a farmer that has a plantation of cocoa.
Right.
A mining company comes and we have something we call crop compensation. They evaluate everything and then tell you that your acre of farm with cocoa or with palm, we're going to give you $2,000. Now, for the farmer, if you're just looking at the number of the crops value on that, it seems like a good bargain at that point. But then if you really want to think about the fact that that piece of area, that kilometer or that acre may never be able to produce food again, then you want to negotiate properly. Even at the local level, even at the district, very small level of crop compensation, and also at the national level, because these goods that we are producing, you're not going to get them back again. So I would still want to go to Aaron's points about from the beginning, about the points that some school of thought is we are even better off leaving the natural resources in the ground. And to some extent, I will agree with that, because for a mining company, when there is a resource, you do commercial feasibility analysis. So it doesn't matter what is there. If the economics doesn't make sense, we leave it there. Ghana has always had oil. Ghana has always had gold. It was until 2007 that they were commercial, which means economic justification to put rigs and start drilling. So if it doesn't make sense to the oil companies, to the mining companies, they will not drill. They will not explore, because that is a very capital intensive. The same way, if the government understands its position, that we are, or the government is in a stronger position, this is what we have, taking into consideration the entire damage. Some of the damages, they are irreparable. There's always going to be a residual damage in all mining communities. So we need to understand that. And this all goes right from educating the local communities. What are they even getting into? What are they receiving? Do they understand this? And the leaders who are negotiating these things, what is their own perspective, not just the short term, but the long term. So education truly is one way, not just at a smaller level, but the national level, having a broader understanding of the effects of mining and being able to tap the resources. So I just would want to go again on Aaron's, some of the points that Aaron raised, why we haven't been able to see the benefits of mining. Would I say, again, to your question to Aaron, would I say it's been a curse or a blessing? It depends on who is answering that. Having mineral resources in itself, it's good, but it is useless when you can't make anything out of that.
Right.
So if you can't make anything out of that, then it's better to leave it there without causing much more trouble that you don't have. So if there is, a mineral resource, gold or diamond anywhere, there underneath these lands, they are farmers usually. They are farming. But the moment there is gold, there is diamond, then there's this principle that's called the Dutch disease. There's a gap. People are now focusing on mining, and now nobody's all of a sudden nobody's farming. And at a point, this is going to affect the output of the agriculture sector, and it will be sometimes it takes too much that we need so much effort to bring it back to initial or previous levels. And so we really need to understand what it is for every piece of contract that we sign at the government level with the large corporations, and also on the smaller scale level, the small communities. They need to understand the impact of their own activities. For them, it is just sustenance. Most of them, they're just trying to live. They're just trying to survive. But they also need to understand that this is something that will have an impact on generations to come. For now, in Takwa, most of the lands there will never be able to, or may never be able to be productive. But we have reclamation laws, how mining sector activity should be done after the mining, how you're supposed to, bring them, the environment, the land back to its original positions. But it doesn't always happen. For example. So education to a larger extent will solve most of the problems that we are seeing now. So if the chief who is negotiating with the Chinese man, if you see that the Chinese man has brought machines on their water bodies and they are mining beneath the waterbed, is it that the people don't understand the consequences? Is it that they don't know? Is it that they don't know the effect of what that is going to cost on the on the fishing, on the fish, on the environment, and just their own drinking, and what effect is going to have on the soil? So education, I couldn't agree more with Enock. Education will play a very huge role in our quest towards gaining or reaping more out of our natural resources.
Thank you very much, Bright. Enock, I'm coming back to you. Beside education, policy-wise, what other recommendation can you make? I mean, we should make sure to build a sustainable future for the youth of Ghana. It's our responsibility to find solutions, to propose solutions that are evidence-informed. How can we take advantage of the abundance of gold in the country, in a sustainable way that can guarantee a brighter future for our youth? What policy can you suggest beside education that you mentioned earlier on?
Yeah, so I think one of the answer I just wanted to say, you've already said it, which is so being sustainable. It's so I think the UN describes sustainability as meeting the needs of the current generation without compromising the needs of future generation. Right. So in terms of the proceeds or in terms of the revenue obtained from the gold extraction, what have we done with those revenue? Right, that should be a question that policymakers and the government should be able to answer. So what have we been able to do? Have we been able to create roads, to build roads? Have we been able to reinvest those proceeds into other investments so that in case the future generation or the children come, they also benefit from the infrastructure facilities or the investment that has been reinvested for them. So that is the whole basis about the UN definition of sustainability, where we say the current generation enjoys, but without compromising the future consumption patterns of future generations, right? So, for instance, if you take Norway, for instance, Norway has reinvested the proceeds from the extraction in terms of their oil and natural resource, and future generation people, unborn babies still have over $2,000 per capita in Norway.
Yeah,
from
through
those
they
natural
have
resources.
The global sovereign fund, I think. That
Yeah,
will invest.
sovereign fund, the heritage fund, and all of those things. They have it there, and they have this. These are children that are unborn and so enjoying these facilities. Not to talk of even the fiscal infrastructure facility that has been invested as well. Here is Ghana. Here is Africa. Nothing has been done. We can't even construct road from these mining communities. Not to talk about the whole country, just the mining communities. The roads are in a very deplorable state. Right? We can't even account for the revenue of the natural resource. As Bright said, it's better we leave the resources untapped. Let's leave it underground, because in as much as a gold is an exhaustible resource, right? In terms of value, I don't think the value is ever going to depreciate, because currently, because of the whole COVID and inflation stuff, people are now reinvesting into gold as a more of a store of value.
Right.
So that is why a lot of the companies have even moved from South Africa to come and concentrate in Ghana, making Ghana the largest producer in recent years, COVID time, because it's cheaper to mine in Ghana than to do in South Africa. So that's the situation. So for me, it's aside the education bit, the policymakers need to also assess reinvesting the proceeds into other areas. It's very, very important. Bright made mention of the Dutch disease. Everyone is moving into extraction of mineral, or let's say oil, and then like we don't use the money for anything. We account it in GDP. We don't even account for the depreciation of the land. That is one. I think I did back in Ghana when I did my master's. I looked at accounting for green accounting, right? Which also it shouldn't be about just adding the income from natural resource into the GDP. You also need to account for the depreciation of that natural resource. So what has happened to the environment? What has happened to the water bodies? Those things need to be netted off from the direct income. Then you can see that, okay, so this is the amount we are making, the real income we are making from mineral resource. And then you know that, okay, we are making a negative. So if you're making a negative, then the investment is not viable. Leave the resource untapped. You can't just destroy the environment and make a few billions and then you think you are rich. No, you are not. You're destroying the environment. You're destroying communities, not to talk of future generations, what future generations will come and enjoy. You just destroy everything and future generations have nothing. All things being equal, if you had left the resources untapped, at least they know that their water bodies are clean. They know that, okay, we still have gold that in case we come mine in the future, because I said the value of gold over the years has not depreciated. The value of gold is definitely going to go up. People are now using gold as a store of value, and so on and so forth. So for me, if we are going to extract, it's not bad, as Aaron said. You wouldn't call it a curse, or you wouldn't also want to categorize it as a blessing. But for me, like once we are able to reinvest the proceeds from this mineral resource into other areas, once we are able to expand manufacturing, once you're able to expand infrastructure, the free education that is ongoing, and other put those monies into other areas, then we can talk about, okay, once future generation comes, then there's something for them to also enjoy as a result of the past reinvestment of the mineral resources. So I use Norway as a case study. These are all blueprints that a lot of the policy regulators and then the policymakers in the country have. They have the blueprint in front of them, but you don't know whether they follow it or they do something else, right? And so for me, once you do a cost, first of all, we need a cost benefit analysis to be able to know whether mining the resource itself is viable, right? Once we're able to do that, once we're able to know the cost and benefit, and we know it's viable, all things being equal, which should be viable, then we can know what to do with the proceed. We get a proceed, are we going to reinvest it into other areas that are suffering? Should we reinvest it into opening other businesses? Should we do in terms of infrastructure, road networks? That's my problem. Road networks in even the communities where the mining are done is so bad, really, really, really bad in those mining communities itself. Not to talk of the country at large, right? So if we're able to invest all these resources, once roads are open in the country, other business will start booming, and that is the reinvestment we are talking about. If you reinvest this, future generations also know that, okay, I've come in to a country where all the roads are working. I'm here in Canada, and as I tell you, I'm living at the. I stay in the East Coast to the west. There's a straight road from the West Coast. Sorry, from the East Coast to the West Coast, which is like almost from Ghana to South Africa. A straight road. Hardly would you even see a pothole. It's that, and that is a problem. That is a problem with a lot of African countries. We only look at the face value or just the nominal value of the proceeds from the resource. We don't look at the real value. We don't look at how to reinvest those values. And there's blueprints for all of them. We've followed case studies of other developed countries that have survived, that have put in different measures to make sure that all these things work for them. And we have all our policymakers have them, but we don't know what they are doing with it. Someone will say it's different talking than implementing, but come on, these are what have been done. If we are following a blueprint, we also follow it to make sure that everything goes well. So for me, the reinvestment part of the proceed is very, very key. Which areas of the sectors are you going to reinvest that proceed? And to make sure once you are reinvesting, it's something that is sustainable so that the future generations will also have a bit of it. Yeah.
Thank you, Kofi. I just want you, before I move on to somebody else, to ask you once again another question. Aaron mentioned something important. He said a step forward is to find a way to put community, government institution, and key industry player into the same table. I think what he meant is to open that kind of dialogue. You know, what can be done to put that in place? I mean, for example, when it comes to infrastructure development, public-private partnership, countries have PPP units, you know, sometimes between the finance minister. Should we have like a gold unit, or I don't know, mineral unit that can bring around the table these three people, government institution, key industry player, and community to talk? If yes, how can it be done? A practical approach to make that happen.
Yeah, I think that is definitely laudable. I think we have the Ghana Chamber of Mines, and then we have the Minerals Commission as well, which should be able to come kind of like form this tripartite committee between the regulators, the government itself, and then the community members, also involving the private business, who want to involve in all this. So I think we have all this. For me, as I said, like the blueprint is there, right? The blueprint from Norway, that of Canada, the most developed countries are there. Everything is there. I don't know whether it's the implementation bit that is the problem, or they go to sit on a table, talk, and everyone goes back their own way, go do whatever they have to do. And I think Bryce said something just about survival, right? In as much as the small artisanal firms are trying to survive, trying to feed their families, I think some of the big men in the country also as well are also doing the same thing. It's just about survival. So they come together, discuss whatever they have to discuss, put the documentation, put everything together, follow the blueprint of other developed countries, but no, like I think on-field implementation of what has been discussed, right? And that is where the issue is. So for me, I think we definitely need people to come together, and all also still boils down to education. The chiefs in the communities and all of them need to understand what is going on. People don't understand. People only understand business. People only understand making money. People only understand profit. That is what is our problem in the country. People don't understand investment. They only understand profits. So if I go put my money in the bank, how much have I made after a period? That is what people understand. People don't understand what the money should be making, and what are the money being invested into. So for me, it's even though there's the committee to sit down to talk about it, to do whatever they have to do, implementing it is very key. Definitely implementing those things is very key. And as I said, we have Ghana Chamber of Mines, who it's more of like an association of mining companies. We have the Mineral Commission, who is a regulator. And then we have the government. Yeah, and then we have the government. Then we even have the 80, the extractive initiative transparency something, right? That was formed to make sure that whatever proceed is obtained from the mineral resource are also like it's transparent for everyone to see. And I tell you, some of those things are not even transparent. You go to the Ministry of Finance, want to get information on mining sector, you don't get anything. And then sometimes you get the mining information you get from the Ministry of Finance or the government institutions are different from what you get from the Minerals Commission. And it's really sickening. Like, you can't even make an informed decision based on data, right? And that's where all these problems are. So you see all these people sit on the table to discuss everything, but once they leave that table, everyone is thinking about how to survive. And that is where the issue is.
Thank you so much for your insight, Kofi. Bright, I just want to bring you to the case of Botswana. You know, in Botswana, for example, the government, when they plan for the price, for example, of diamond, and if the price global market increase, they will save the extra in period of, you know, when the economy is bad, then they can use it. They have a kind of prudent approach, you know, to manage rent from the diamond. What can you say about Ghana? Should they put in place such a procedure, you know, to make sure, you know, I'm just thinking like this, to make sure that the next generation is taken into account when the government do things?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think we already have all of that in Ghana. Actually, we have come a long way from economic rent that we get from the mining companies. It used to be 3%, and 2006, 2010, there was a Minerals Mining Amendment Act that brought it to 5%. So we are now, as it stands, a few mining companies have been able to negotiate their ways to have a scaling where, you know, depending on the pricing of gold in the national market, could be 3 to 5%. But at revenue or at source, we're getting 5%. Now the question is, we have the minerals fund there. That's all of these proceeds are supposed to go there, and to look at investing this for the next generation. We already have these, but the implementation and how, I mean, not even talking about the next generation, how this is dispersed. For example, the royalties at the national level, how much of that actually go back to the mining communities?
Right.
And do they go on time for these communities when they need them? These are the questions. And currently, there's been a lot of, trouble around securitization of our mineral royalties. And a lot of opinions have been shared regarding why it is good or not good, selling, future mining revenues. So we already have all of these things, but we need proper negotiation. We need to really understand the value of what we have. I'm yet to find an African country, apart from Botswana that you have mentioned in South Africa, that is really negotiated properly. You know, African government, we are extremely bad at negotiating, because we don't know, if you don't know what you have, you don't know what you are negotiating for. And It's not a matter of, hardening the mining companies to say, I want 10%, that's not, a straightforward kind of negotiation, because we have to also be careful that in as much as we want to gain much or enough for ourselves, mining is a capital intensive operation, and you need to be able to attract, big capital into the sector. We need to have structured approaches. So Aaron mentioned about, talked a little bit about social corporate responsibility. So these mining companies, when they want to feel good, they'll just build some school somewhere and make some pipe-borne waters, and then they collect tax, rebate on that even. But it should be part of the negotiation that, okay, we will take X% as royalty. When the gold price goes to this level, we will also make this as part of this whole package. It's part of the contract that you're going to put so much of our people, this number of people per year in education, in training. You know, we have to have a very, proper negotiating, not just, sitting there, I'm giving you 5%, you'll give you 10%, and that is all. That so far for me, we haven't even had better negotiation. And if you look at what they are proposing for our future revenues, how much they want to sell that for, it is funny. You know, it is funny because it tells you why our people don't understand the value or the position that we are in. Africa controls 30% of global resources. What does that even mean? Nothing for me. Nigeria, until recently, was Africa's largest producer of oil. But go to Abuja, go to Lagos, you have to queue to buy petrol. So what is the point? Angola has now taken over, being the largest. What does that even mean? It's just numbers. What really will bring us value is when you have value addition. So the chocolate industry, for example, that is over 100 billion industry. But we are sitting in Ghana claiming we are the world's, Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire alone, you know, we supply about 60% of the world cocoa. And for Ghana, just about 2 billion in revenue, out of over $100 billion industry. Germany, I'm in Germany now, we don't have any cocoa trees here, but we are making more out of cocoa than the farmer in Ghana. Most of the farmers, they have not even eaten chocolate their entire lives. It's not different for minerals. It's not different for extractive industries. The jewelry industry is 7 times higher than the gold production industry. Italy doesn't even come 30th in gold ranking production, but they make more out of gold than us. So until we start thinking about what we have and how to really get more out of that, you know, setting up this fund and all of that, the question is how much is going there? I mean, if you really think about it broadly, it is nothing. We haven't had anything. If you really, you know, want to be, straightforward, we haven't, received the value, the true value that we are supposed to get out of our extractive industry. So back to your question, we already have these structures. We already have the Minerals Development Fund. The question is being around, the problem is being around how these funds are being managed and how the funds, the proceeds go in there, eventually will go to the communities. Aaron mentioned, if you have been in Ghana and you're familiar, from Boase, Takwa, Boase, Yamfuri, all the way, you know, they have the West roads in Ghana. And it's not, it's a simple logic because that is where you have all the big mining tracks, you know, applying the roads. So it makes sense that the roads are always, in a bad shape. You know, you look at the environment where the gold is actually coming from. They are, you know, you can't see that. You can't see that this is support. This is a community that produces so much money. So it's about what we do or how, we manage these funds. We already have all of that. All the laws, you know, you can think about, we already have them in Ghana. It's about how to make the best out of that.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much, Kofi. Thank you so much, Aaron, and thank you so much, Bright. We are grateful. We came to the end of our webinar. Thank you so much again, and bye-bye to all of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah.